Okay, so hello, I am Anto Budiarajo. This is Monday Live. This is something that we do every Monday afternoon at 3 p.m. Eastern to try and figure out the future for smarter buildings. It's great to have you here with us today. If you're wondering who we are, our profiles are listed on mondaylive.org. So head over there to find out who we are. And just an important point that views expressed here on this hour are personal, not of any company or organization. So keep that in mind, please. And let's make this as interactive as possible with comments and chats and questions on the Zoom chat. And if you do want anything that's on this slide deck, it is also available on mondaylive.org. So this being December, we're sort of wrapping up the year and sort of anticipating next year. So we're just doing a recap of the year. On today's show, we're just going to have our normal news and trends chit chat, and then we're going to talk about really next year, our anticipating next year, and maybe a prediction or two, if we're brave.
Or foolish.
Or foolish, yeah. But before we do that, I'm going to hand it over to Ken Sinclair for some news from automatedbuildings.com. Ken, what's going on?
Okay, thank you very much, Anto. Of course, we, like everyone, are hard at trying to get together our AHR programming. It's going pretty well. We're starting to get set up the first meetings. We're having a little bit of a time crunch trying to get that done before the festive season. I think it's thankful that AHR is in February, almost mid-February this year, so we all have a little bit more time in the new year, but looking forward to getting our program together. Tremendously proud of the speakers we've got. Lots of Monday Live folks are involved in our programs, and we're looking very forward to that. Just a few things. As you mentioned, we're going to take a peek into 2025 today. I'm looking forward to that. We've got there the summation of 2024 in mid-screen there. Also, we have a review of the last Monday's, a year in review. So we had AI and Kelly take a run at that. I think it came out fairly well. Something that came across my desk just hours ago, and a day ago, I posted, and I was amazed at the interest, and got like about 800 folks poking at it in a day. So that's usually a pretty good indication. John Chambers, 2025 predictions. I think they're fairly conservative. Anto and I were just talking about it. It's AI is coming. I think we knew that, but it's going to significantly affect us all. It's probably worth a click to take a read through there. Also, Steve Dodds has been done a great post on convergence or segregation down there on the right-hand bottom corner. So yeah, that one there. And so that's kind of interesting. He's created a four slide presentation and kind of talks a little bit about what's going on there. And it's not that far from what we've been speaking about. So I think the thing we can all be proud of at Monday Live and C4SB is that I think we are starting to have an effect on some of the words that are being said. And a lot of what happens online is we read stuff, and whether we consciously or subconsciously recognize that we tend to reuse those words, especially if they happen to be said well and actually convey a concept. And there's a lot of concepts we need to convey, and there's a lot of concepts we need to simplify. And so anyway, as we all chat and interact and post as an industry, I think we're getting our message out there, and we're trying to all figure out what exactly is happening here. And I think we're getting a better handle on it. So back to you, Anto.
Great. Thank you, Ken. on the link board, as normal, the Smarter Summit 25, the link is now live. We'll talk about that in a minute. So that's great. Just a programming note. This is the last Monday Live of 2024. We're going to have a vacation the rest of the year. Yay. And we will be back on Monday, January 6th. Next year, 2025. So looking forward to that little break for us. Any other thoughts or news that anybody want to share?
Out of interest, Anti, how long have we been doing this?
So we 4.5 years, well, 4 years and 9 months. I think next April it'll be 5 years, believe it or not.
Wow.
How time flies, right? Because we started in April 2020, just when the pandemic got into full gear. So it's been a while. So, okay. Looking at this year and next year. Last week we spent the hour going through what we did last year, or this year, obviously. All the way from the Smarter Summit in January, talking about that, and OT, talking about IoT, talking AI. Those sort of 3 very, very interesting months, one leading into the next, and then talking about the next chapter. And then we went down this sort of path. The automation and smart are really completely different things. We talked about building silos and how they can all be integrated with each other. Then we spent a month talking about buildings as assets, and then dived into system of systems. And finally, last month, we talked about how software is eating buildings the way software is eating the rest of the world. And now we have this month. So I think, as Ken pointed out, there was an interesting conversation last week, which you obviously can watch on YouTube or read about on Ken's site. Sort of starting to look at 2025, I think the first thing that's sort of on our sort of schedule is AHR and the ASHRAE Winter Conference and Smarter Summit 2025. So I'm going to ask Rick to talk a little bit about Smarter Summit and where we've been the last 3 years doing the Smarter Summit and what to expect.
Yeah, so the last couple of years, I can't believe this will be the third one of the Smarter Summit. The first one was sort of coming together to talk about the fact that we were gathering or convening to try and identify, technical barriers or barriers to faster adoption of smarter building technologies. And during that session, we had identified quite a few things, and we were starting to propose, and we got a lot of great feedback on, these are things that are preventing adoption. And then we kind of brought groups together to focus on things, whether it was 525 or the Smarter Stack, or then the IBB kind of took shape. And last year, a big part of what we were doing was updating everybody and sort of announcing the fact that the IBB was this manifestation of a bunch of things coming together to show the industry, what might be possible. And we got really good feedback from that. So this year will be sort of a follow-on of that same theme of, how do we encourage a more rapid adoption of smarter building technologies. And a big part of this year will be the focus on how we believe that the Linux Foundation is going to be a big accelerant and bring a lot of attention to our space in a way that brings focus and brings ideas and and a lot of momentum to how do we use open source software? How do we leverage Linux and the new technologies and the younger people that are attracted to those sort of technologies? How do we, as an industry, go ahead and latch on to some of the models that have been shown in other industries, and really leverage what Linux wants to do, which I've been passing around his slide of what the Linux mission is, and they're really, Linux Foundation is really aggressively saying they want to convene the largest investment of technology experts and resources that's ever happened to dramatically change the landscape of the industries that they're focused on, and that's as of, well, maybe this afternoon, we're going to be formally not announcing, what's the right word? We're going to start to talk about how Linux Foundation intends to impact this industry. And we'll be able to talk either one-on-one with people before AHR or in small groups. We've already started to have some conversations about what Linux's intent is in our industry. And at AHR, there will be a sort of a big reveal of what some of that can mean.
That's great. So that's from 3 to 5. That's on the Sunday. That's the setup Sunday before AHR actually gets going. So hopefully we'll see all of you there. And that's in room W105, which is in the same hall as the building and control and automation showcase. It's actually on the floor underneath it. So looking forward to that. And apparently there's a game or something, Rick. What's going on?
We have no idea what teams might be in that game.
Hey, who are the Chiefs playing? Shoot.
Yeah, it's just a question of who the Chiefs will be playing. That's right. But even if the Chiefs are not in that game, the intent would be to have a Super Bowl watch party somewhere close to the convention center. And those of you remember where the Rosen Center Hotel is, it's connected to the convention center, big bar, outdoor pool area with a bar area, kind of thinking that might be where we convene a Super Bowl watch party. But that's sort of preliminary.
Cool.
Did you say the Cowboys?
I did.
I just got a meme. ASU played at AT&T Stadium this weekend. And the meme said, number of touchdowns at AT&T Stadium this year. ASU 6, Cowboys 5.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah, it was.
So that's the Smarter Summit. That's the Sunday. That should be a really interesting event. And then on the AHR Expo itself, many of us will be camped on booth 1190, which is the Lundmark booth. So Lundmark has opened up their booth as they did last year to partner with C4SP and Monday Live. Tracy, do you want to speak a little bit about what to expect there?
Sure. It's there'll be another group or two actually coming into this too. Looks like Newsom, which is a power line carrier technology group, and one of our sub, what's the right term? I'm blanking on the right term, but Lundmark Japan will be part of the booth. So there'll be lots of things to see there. Some demos that will be going on from the various groups. So definitely come by and take a peek.
And are we going to see an IBB there?
I believe that is the plan, is to have some functioning IBB based systems in the booth as well. Yeah.
Cool.
Maybe more than one.
Great. And Jim, I know that you're planning to have an IBB on your booth, on the Symmetrix booth.
Absolutely, we will have one there, Anto, for sure.
Great. So looking forward to playing around with that and seeing the demos and stuff.
All good.
Maybe we can get our various IBBs communicating.
Sure. There's always the network across the show floor problem, but Happy to talk about it, Tracy, if you want.
It's never easy to do.
Right.
It's called the internet, guys. We're cloud native.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. We should be able to do that, actually.
And I know there are other booths. I don't know if anybody wants to talk about their booths or what they're doing, anything different or anything new.
We have about, for Link Spring, we have 6 new things we're gonna unveil at AHR. And I personally am extremely excited about all 6. And some of them have to do with cloud, some of them have to do with edge devices, edge computing. Others has to do with the use of data in a new market that we have been going after. Very similar concepts, but challenges that we experience in the built environment. But this is, we think the partner that and we'll be announcing in a partner with that, we'll have some good stuff to share. So looking forward to it.
I think since everyone's giving a plug, I'd like to give a plug for the Automated Buildings Free Education Sessions. Our theme this year is scaling. What we're seeing when we put our heads down and said, what's different is the technologies we're moving into now, they allow us to scale way beyond where we could before, whether that scaling means borrowing technologies that other people are using, or whether it means using less people and using technology in lieu of people, or just the actual power of being able to take your concept and trowel it over several systems. So that's kind of our theme. As we mentioned, there's a lot of Monday Live and CF4SB people in the sessions. We're excited about them. It's also the first time we've had a significant amount of Wednesday sessions, and it was great to see that the workshop is on Wednesday as well. So it looks like a lot of folks will be hanging around for the Wednesday, which sometimes doesn't happen. So back to you.
Great. Anybody else want to talk about the show floor stuff?
Yeah, as part of ISMA Controli, which I run the U.S. operation, as everybody on the panel knows, our big announcement or push for this show will be the unveiling of our new VAV controller for the U.S. market. Historically, we haven't had a product, and we've been working hard to produce one. And so it's going to get launched here at the upcoming ASHRAE, and it's going to leverage our existing new technology, which we call Nano Edge, which is an IP-based programming environment, and that is going to take full advantage of it. So that's the main area for us, or the main announcement. I would say with relationship to all the development we've been doing here on Monday Live, I think what supports that is a lot of the technology we're building into the Nano Edge for remote access and remote management of our devices. So I think that'll be very much relevant to the bigger picture of IBB.
Is that going to use Android as a background, or?
We use Linux for
Linux, okay.
For everything we do. Yeah. So
Super.
Yeah.
Even
So
better.
I think from an IBB standpoint, we're 100% Linux, and from a communication standpoint, we're building in very lot of flexibility for remote access over the internet using secure protocols.
Great. Jim, do you want to talk about other stuff that's going on the Symmetrics booth beyond having an IBB there?
I think that we're very excited finally about cybersecurity. And my prediction this year is that you're going to start seeing a lot more very large BACnet Secure Connect jobs. They're coming through. So we're going to be talking about ways to handle security certificates and scale these very large cybersecurity projects. So that's my projection for the year, and that's what we'll be talking about, as well as potentially hosting some of this cybersecurity technology on the IBB.
Great. I think everybody's had an opportunity to talk about Expo side of things. On the sessions itself, which Ken was talking about, does anybody want to highlight what they're speaking about on the session that in the automated building side of things? Anybody want to specifically point out something? Otherwise, we can move on.
We've got a session which is kind of unique. I don't think we've ever tried running it at AHR before. Is we've gathered up the folks displaying mostly IP orientated controls and hopefully cloud native on the floor, and we're letting them have their sales pitch. So the first requirement is you have to be an exhibitor at AHR, and the second requirement is you get to send out your best salesman, and he does like a 5-minute pitch, and we rate it on humor and actually even the products, and but it's just going to be a lot of fun kind of thing we're hoping for. And they apparently ran this at ControlCon in Dallas, and they had so much fun they wanted to do it again, the Cochrane folks. So we're looking forward to that, and we've got lots of folks signed up for that now, and so it'll be interesting to see how that goes.
And that is when is that, Monday or Tuesday?
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
It's Tuesday at 4 o'clock, I think. It's the idea is it rolls off into a party somewhere. It ends in a party. Starts in a fight and ends in a party. No, it's okay.
Great.
More stuff, but no.
And then on the Wednesday, we're going to have the IBB workshop. We did that last year in Chicago. Exactly what the format of that is, we're a little bit unsure. It all sort of comes together pretty close to the time. But the idea is that after 2-3 days of the show itself, there may be an opportunity to do some practical hands-on or discussions. We shall see what happens. And the registration for the Smarter Stack is now open, and I will put the link in chat. And with that, we want to talk about 2025, and not quite sure where to start. I did see a post by a certain Mark Peacock on LinkedIn about anticipating next year. Do you want to talk about what you went through there, Mark?
Sure. Again, looking at based on conversations with lots of different people, whether they be other OEMs or system integrator contractors, end users, whatever. So on my posting, I put, I think the most important thing as I see, or the challenge that I see for all of us in 2025, is what effect the change in the US administration is going to have on various policies, et cetera, and of which tariffs. And our tariffs, if enacted, what are we going to experience from a supply chain dynamics and pricing and all that type of stuff? I'll just run through a few of these real quick. So that to me probably is, as I see, is one of the most important. The next is the continuation of AI, the AI evolution, as I like to kind of refer to it, and we do here in Monday Live, and see where that actually goes, where it's going to end up, especially as it's related to something near and dear to our heart, which is the OT side of running and managing a building. Next is, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about, Jim Lee, you mentioned it already, a little bit about cyber and the threats that will still be with us, whether we like it or not. I think we're going to be faced with lots of threats, and that it's going to require ongoing vigilance and continuation of robust protection measures to prevent those types of things. I also think that two more, and I'll just open up, is the importance of service and being able to offer and gain access to lots of different service dependencies that we're starting to see pop up and those types of things. And then one which you've all heard me talk about for the last year and a half or so is the outcome focused and that play in what owners and operators are looking to, not just ROI, but what outcomes, not just the technology, but what outcomes. So again, go to my LinkedIn page and have a look and write something to it, add to it. So there you go.
Or respond to it right now. Anyone want to pick up on any of those highlights?
I'll try to chime in. When I look forward, I have a very similar list in terms of what we've seen in the market and some of the things we're dealing with. Tariffs are a concern for us. We've been through this once before, and it was nightmarish, to say the least, in the amount of extra hassle and pricing adjustments and so forth. I was going to chime in when it was my turn on the AI part of it. I continue to see more and more integrations and innovative uses of generative AI, large language models within stuff that's getting closer and closer to our world here. So I can't imagine that there will be anything that will outshine the forward steps that are taken in that area coming in 2025, to be honest. And then go ahead, Steve, sorry.
No, I coughed.
Oh, sorry. And then the other thing is just seeing if we can gain critical mass on the open source work that we've been working on, starting back with Div 2525 all the way through to what we've been working on lately. It seems like 2025 will be a tipping year for that, to me. The momentum is going in that general direction now. So, but I will say, I have felt that before in some of my previous roles. So, and we're not there yet, so we'll see.
But it's never been the year 25 before. So
That's
maybe
right.
this is the time for Div 25.
I guess so.
What was that song with some of us who are a little older on the call, in the year 2525?
25.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
We're still
that
500
feels-
years away, you know that, Mark, right?
That's still
Say
a
that
ways
again.
away. Yeah.
And
Just
if you listen to the lyrics of that song, it's actually extremely dark. So don't go there.
Yeah.
No, don't go there.
One final thing, I almost forgot. I also predict that neither the Cowboys or the Cardinals will be playing the Chiefs in the Super Bowl.
Well, you have
Oh,
two.
man.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, or the Patriots. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the Patriots, that's for sure.
So on Mark's point about tariffs, I think it's really interesting because if you look at the pandemic shocks and the price increases that have happened in the industry, it's my thesis that even though prices went up some, they didn't really challenge the glass ceiling we have in this industry, that certain components can't cost more than a certain amount. there's a $1,000 glass ceiling on many boxes in the industry and others. I'm wondering what the collective wisdom of the group is. You know, if there's another 20% shock, is that going to be able to be passed on to customers through a competitive process, or are we going to get forced to eat it as an industry because people just won't pay more?
I have some definite thoughts on that because, like I said, we spent a lot of time in that space. So, and the part of our business that this was impacted the most had to do with semiconductor equipment manufacturing. So electronics in general. And, you know, we make the parts that go into the machines that make the chips, right? And all of that started with, you know, goods that are already manufactured in China, and then they come to the US, and then we ship them back out again to OEMs and so forth. But the general effect was, you know, we had tariffs passed on to us. We passed it on to our OEM customer who adjusted the prices in their equipment. I don't have good visibility past that, but I could see that part of it. That was up, 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 and up. And the one thing regarding the glass ceiling, I think tariffs artificially disguise price hikes that make those glass ceilings a little less ceiling-like because it's almost an excuse, a legitimate excuse to raise the pricing. You know, it's unavoidable.
There's the onshoot of that though, Tracy, is, and we've seen that in the past too, is other things will go up as well, whether they're impacted by the tariff or not, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
If I'm a supplier of a comparable product, that'll give me the excuse to raise my price at that point.
Yeah, absolutely is.
There'll be a lot of hidden, it's because of tariffs.
Yeah, but
Yes.
I mean,
Increasing.
one of the interesting points that I take away is that there's really different behavior in pricing in markets, depending on whether it's a consumer good or an institutional or commercial good like we have. And you know, what I see is that there's also, because we're involved in technology, there's this ever advancing thought that the price should come down of these items, right? And if you look at certain things like large screen TVs right now, they're effectively free compared to what they used to be. So we see continued price down, but that's a high volume consumer good.
Right.
And when we look at sort of industrial and commercial products like we sell, there really isn't the ability for manufacturers to get to those economies of scale. You know, the whole hardware shipments of our industry is around $2 billion a year in North America or thereabouts, which is a pretty small number for the entire industry. So, you know, the question is what is the opinion of our consumer, the building owner, and does this stuff just get passed along in bids, or, you know, where does it go in our industry?
Yeah, my concern, Jim, is that we're already on tight margins for the things that we do, right? And the ROI story has just been tough to, this, right? It's just, there's back to the whole, how do you buy it? Who's buying it? Why are you buying it? What's the value? What's the impact? We've talked about this for the last year or so. It's a constant battle to prove our worth. To raise the cost of that is going to be a challenge, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm trying to say here, Anno, without saying it, and I'm glad you articulated better.
And another thing is whether real or perceived, Jim, as I see it, is that news such as tariffs will automatically cause people to think prices are going to increase. Therefore, you know what? Instead of doing this particular project in the first quarter, I'm going to delay it until the fourth quarter in the hopes that the tariffs are removed, or, you know, something. It's a much smoother process to go ahead and go forward with a project. Now, I will say this, that we've already have clients, customers who are already starting to hedge bets and placing orders now to prevent having to deal with tariffs. And I'm not talking about just onesie twosies. I'm talking about thousands from at least two large of our customers in the excess of 7,000 units. So, you know, so it's
Is that,
causing, go ahead.
sorry, Mark, but is that
Yep.
just emptying your coffers from next year? I mean, that's just meaning you're bringing all that forward, but you're not replacing that with new sales next year either, right?
We, who knows, to be
Sure.
determined. Yeah, you know, we think so because of our pipeline. So yes, from our perspective.
So
And,
I'm
go ahead.
wondering how this balances with Ken's sort of thesis of scale being the sort of important thing at AHR. Scale obviously changes the dynamics of economics. That's the whole reason why you have scale potentially. And the other thing that it needs to be sort of considered is the open source side of things, which is not only technically free, and I know it's not, right? But it's a different economic model, right? And it's a model that changes the ability for us to use much more technology, much more sort of interesting technology. So I'm wondering how the challenges of growth from things like tariff balances with the scale and open source and the change of technology that we're likely to use. Anybody want to take that?
No, but I do want to. I think the threat of tariffs is just that, and I think it's a tool that the Trump administration is going to use to try to level the playing field where they feel that the U.S. is being harmed. And I do not. I could be wrong. We'll find out soon enough, right? But I do not think it'll be used as an across the board mandate for any product coming into the United States, regardless where it's coming from. I think it's going to be very selective. It's going to go after businesses that are of significant consequence to the U.S. economy, or where we're trying to be an exporter and we're being effectively blocked out of developing product. You know, Japan has been a good example of that historically. So I view the tariffs as a tool for trade negotiations, not as a mandate that's going to happen on January 26th or whatever the date is of the inauguration. So we'll see, but that's my opinion, if you will. And so I'm not particularly concerned out of, particularly as we've talked about, our industry in the scheme of things is small potatoes. We aren't going to bend the curve for anything. So I just don't think we're going to get the attention. But automobiles, sure. You know, some computer components, sure. But you know, controls, no, I don't see it.
I kind of have the opinion that historically controls and the stuff we deal with, people put up their prices each year by what they think they can get away with. I don't think there's an awful lot of science goes into the increases, but I think it was interesting during the COVID years, of course, when sometimes prices went up twice or three times in a year. I haven't seen them come down since the flow of products have actually come back. So people do swallow it, and I think going back to what you said, Jim, it's a small component really in the scheme of things. You know, with the hardware, and it really is a small component in the whole building. It's the rest of the stuff that goes in the building that's going to affect it overall, and whether that has an effect on the whole industry, I don't know.
And Greg made a point that from their perspective, he obviously works for an SI. Control materials is a relatively small part. So the implication is that it's not really going to change the ultimate price.
I think one other thing, just to throw in something slightly different that I think will start happening through the year will be, you know, you're going to get companies that finally going to be settling on this hybrid working thing, which side of the fence they're sitting. But I do think there's still going to be this moving out of building as leases continue to run out and, you know, do get shorter. I think people will be moving where they're working at, whether they're doing hybrid or not. And just to take advantage of the fact they can get a smarter building for less money maybe and take a shorter lease. And I think that will affect, because you'll end up with the buildings that are going to be multi-tenanted, whereas before it was one company. And I think that will be, you know, obviously the retrofit and refurb market, I think, will be significant compared with the new build next year.
In fact, some interesting data points. Just talking about other countries for a moment. See, Japan just posted that they're going to move to a 4-day working week next year. Nothing to do with work environment. It is all to do with the fact that they are negative population growth, right? That and they figured that by offering the extra day on the weekend, parents will have time to have a second kid, right? At the moment, no one's having the second one because they can't. Yeah, so it's all focused around trying to get more population growth. So they're moving to a 4-day. But one of the reasons that they cite in the analysis is that with working from home and remote and stuff, that people have become more efficient and more effective, in fact, over when they were used to working at, when they were, especially in the Japanese culture, right, making everyone come to the office, that they've seen an uptick in performance, and therefore they think they can balance the reduction of 1 day with the increase in efficiencies and performance of people working remote as well. So interesting study, and as a result, moving to, and then the other one I saw, Anto, you might know this last week, Indonesia has just introduced 25% tariffs on all goods, not that on goods that don't have more than, I can't remember the number, some percentage of manufacture in Indonesia. And so as a result, Apple is moving their first $1 billion fab to Indonesia. And if you don't know, there's a population there of what, 180 million, 200 million people in Indonesia. Right. So Apple is pretty serious about, yeah, for that amount of access to market, I'll move a manufacturing. And I think they may also be playing the game of, well, Indonesia might be excluded from any tariffs into the US. So moving out of China and Vietnam and some of the other more popular areas in the process. So some interesting international politics going on. And
that's one of those pub quizzes, and is that Indonesia is the 4th most populous country in the world.
Yep. And Roger, to add to sort of piggyback a little bit on as far as leases and, you know, movement within that, today in the Journal, New York City's largest office landlord, SL Green, talked about how things are rebounding and they're starting to have a budding recovery. So
is that because they've been reducing their prices by, you know, the cost of the cost to the tenants?
I'm not sure. I just got a headline that came across from me.
Yeah.
I haven't
looked at it. I'm aware of, Roger.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Rick and Tracy, you both mentioned open source as part of sort of the AHR conversations and earlier today. How do you think that's going to change the sort of the economics of this industry, if at all, next year and beyond?
I'll say that I think what's happening in other industries that are realizing and bragging about the effects of the leverage of open source to be able to get to market faster, reduce the friction and for support and for development. I think that's going to be recognized as one of the key ways to, you know, overcome where there are other challenges, because it's just becoming very clear at executive levels that leveraging the work of other people to give yourself a shortcut to your markets is one of the most no-brainer things you can do as a business. And so what we're going to do in this industry will be to show, okay, well, here's what you could do. If you're an owner, you can demand it. If you're a developer or an innovator, you can participate in it. If you're a manufacturer, you can decide to do it or not and see what happens. But the realization in other industries of how much quicker you can get to market and how much faster you can distinguish yourself from your competitors, that's being seen in, so AI is one of the big things that executives are seeing, but, and then kind of under the radar a little bit more is that the leverage of open source is actually the way you get to AI. So AI may be the headline, but the path is through open source, and that's being very well recognized. And so I don't know if 25, I don't know if the major players in our industry, they're certainly going to be get an invitation to participate in what we're going to be doing and announcing. Which ones will decide to take the shortcut and to leap to the front of the pack? It'll be interesting. In other industries, it's becoming really obvious which ones are doing that. So in the search for competitiveness and efficiency, when you have this gift sitting on a platter being handed to you as an executive, it'll just be interesting to see which companies decide to go ahead and take that.
So you say other industries. What are you talking about? What industries are you talking about? Are they tech industries you're referring to?
Well, everybody considers themselves a tech industry now. So if you're a grocery store, you think of yourself as a tech firm. A bank, car companies think of themselves as tech firms, and they just happen to have wheels and a metal wrapped around their technology. And automotive might be actually the best example of adoption of open source to get to market quick. Look how fast the self-driving car got to Ford. Do you think Ford just spent a nickel on developing any of that stuff? No, they just adopted the open source stuff.
Just to extend that, Rick, if you haven't seen it, the huge number of startup manufacturers in China who are making the new generation mini cars. If you haven't seen, these are the 2 people, maybe 4 and a push, but the 2 people micro ones, which you can buy for under $2,000. All electric, all open source, all driven by even Tesla that makes their technology open if you want it, type of deal. It's just spawned a whole wealth of micro cars, which the Western European countries are starting to eye very, very closely, because now you could buy most Western European countries, you only need something that can go 10 miles a day. That's all you need. And 2 people and some groceries in the back, right? And got tiny roads that these things are just perfect on. China's gone nuts on them.
Disposable cars.
Almost.
No, it's not disposable.
Seriously.
It's not disposable. It's quick to market cars.
I
And
paid
that's,
more than that for my bicycle. Crying out loud.
We'll see.
but the point is that if you've got a little bit of capital, which by the way, there's more capital sitting available to use than ever. If you've got a little bit of capital and a new idea for a business, you can just look at the shelf and see all this open source stuff and all these suppliers that'll be happy to sell you the different components. And you can put together a very, very competitive, compelling offering. And while we sit around and talk about, oh, woe is the real estate industry and whatever, there are innovative people sitting back and saying, man, this is low-hanging fruit.
What do you think, Tracy? Is that?
Kind of listening to all this, I think just from a kind of a global standpoint, while I said that 2025 is probably the tipping year here in terms of critical mass in our industry, I'm a little pessimistic on our industry's ability to change in any measurable short amount of time. And I'll give you an anecdote. When a long time ago, when I first started kind of speaking in public, talking about lawn technology, and more importantly, talking about connecting your control system to the internet. And I would do an audience survey, raise your hand if you've got any devices in your home that are connected to the internet. And 20–25% of the audience would raise their hand. Which isn't a lot if you think about this. And when I was on doing a little maintenance on my Wi-Fi in my house this weekend, I noticed the total device count was 59 devices.
In your house.
Yeah, just in the house, right? So I don't know.
You got a big house.
That's
You got
the
a big
stand
house,
up-
obviously.
Yeah,
Got your
yeah.
defibrillator too there, young man?
No, nothing like that. But between doorbells and cameras and phones and laptops and TVs and so on and so forth, sprinklers and pool, and just it adds up after a while. Picture frames and you name it, right? I don't know that we'll see anything like that in our industry. That happened relatively quickly in consumer world, but I'm talking a span of 15 years here, right? Still. So despite having said, I think this is kind of the tipping year, I think it's starting us down the path in a serious way. But economically, coming back to what you asked about, Anto, I think, first of all, any impact will be more of the indirect nature, like pickup in efficiency of development and time to market with new products and things like that. I don't see it impacting the cost of putting a control system in anytime soon. It's going to take a while for it to have any serious impact on the incumbents. And I don't think it's going to be make it so that all of a sudden we see people having to lower their prices, right? I think that the way that we as an industry will utilize open source is more in those efficiency areas, as opposed to reducing the cost of a product or software. I mean, in theory, it should bring it down, but I just don't see that happening in our industry. Right.
I do back on my old hobby horse, right? I do wonder what the tariffs and the increases will do to all the IoT companies, right? All the startups who are building their stuff in China and everywhere else and are highly cost competitive, right? To be honest, from my perspective, when we look at IoT companies, they tend to be all the same. So then it just comes down to, what's your price, type of deal.
The thing I didn't mention when I was talking about it, when we went through that whole thing, the one thing it didn't do is it didn't impact our profits, because we passed everything along, right? The consumers are the ones who ended up paying for that, or the last one down the stream, right? So, and to your point, the one good thing is, tariffs affect everybody, right? It's not going to pick on one company versus the other company versus another. So anyone that's using those kinds of products will be equally impacted.
No, I get that. I was trying to tie it back to Anto's point about, with the wealth of IoT companies, will the tariffs knock out a bunch of them who are not going to stay competitive because feature functions not really exciting, right? And to Anto's point, will that let them focus more on increasing feature functions and innovation stuff, as opposed to here's an IAQ sensor and here's a dashboard that shows my IAQ. Okay, guy, sorry, not very exciting.
One thing I do wonder about in the development cycle, and we spent a year or two ago, whenever it was, on this group talking about crossing the chasm and new technologies breaking out into mainstream. Part of the challenge with accelerating our ability to develop new products, while most would say that's really good, but the other problem is it never gives enough runway for anything to or as many things to get adopted as mainstream, because next year there's a new, better version. Next year there's a new, better version, you know? I think about cell phones, and I've had conversations over the years about people and how often they upgrade their cell phones. And, you know, there are some who do it every single year, and there are others who like, I'm going to wait until next year's version because it'll have new features. And I'm going to wait until the year after because there's not a lot new potentially in this year's version. So I don't have an answer for that, but it makes me wonder, with a development cycle shortened and expanded width-wise, the creativity and innovation that we're starting to see. I think the challenge for IoT companies is going to be gaining any serious market share
Yeah, it's,
and therefore scale, right?
And even
and that's
with-
what I was wondering, right? And as a result of the tariffs or whatever, will it actually flush out a whole bunch of them, which I'm kind of okay with. I think we've got, you know, I'm overwhelmed with the numbers that ping me
Yeah.
every day.
I wouldn't have guessed, just personally, I wouldn't have guessed that tariffs would be the thing to do that. I think there are other forces that will help
Yeah.
do that.
I think it just might push some over the edge.
Good.
You can't,
Yeah,
even
by-
though,
by-
even though you've got standard platforms, you know, and open platforms, you have to understand it's still not that quick to develop stuff. By the time you've written it to go on the platform, you've done all the testing and stuff, it's still a, you know, good few years before you can actually get a new product out and launch it and test it and then get some market traction. So it's I'm not sure we're going to see a huge influx of stuff straight away. It might happen over the next 2 or 3 years. I do think one other technology that may shine through a little bit more, though, might be wireless. I think we could see you know, that beginning to get adopted a little bit more.
What kind of wireless? In building?
Yeah, I think in building. I think you know,
LoRaWAN is the one that we're
LoRaWAN.
seeing. Yeah.
yeah, it's the default one now. It's becoming the kind of standard that people are beginning to use globally now.
Very much. Yeah. We're seeing a lot of that, Roger.
Yeah.
So we,
I don't
You
think
know, guys-
very many people on the call are involved in the export business, but I would assume if you are, that the tariffs would have a deleterious effect on that as well, as other countries produce tariffs. Does anyone see an effect there?
You know, that's interesting. We export more than half of our revenue. And I didn't see it on the export portion of that hit us yet. But it could be if people are taking note and tagging along.
Right.
when
It's,
I
it's,
see
o-
people-
it's only about a quarter of our revenue is exported, but you know, I'm just
But it
curious to,
might just drive Jim to maybe what the whole thing's about, which is actually keep it as an internal market, repel all borders and keep the business in-house, a kind of approach to the US.
right, right.
Before we
Sure.
call an end to this and celebrate, you know, the time off for the rest of the month, as a topic for discussion for next year, I would really like to focus on applications for smartphones. And because I believe what could really facilitate this migration to IBB and this next generation architecture is when companies have to, as table stakes, show me your app. Today, everything is a workstation. Everything's a laptop.
Yeah.
All the software is laptop focused. But
I-
when the market starts saying, show me your app, what is that going to do? That's going to force us to solve this fundamental problem of how you get data from these systems.
We've had apps for a while, Steve.
Yep.
And our approach might not be the right approach, but what we did in our first go round, we created actual iOS and Android apps that were wrappers that kind of wrapped what our, you know, browser based version of our platform would look like. Right now, I don't know if we'll stick with this. But right now, on our newer version of our platform, we don't even have the wrappers. It's just open a browser and hit it with your mobile, and everything is reactive, right? So it auto scales to the phone. It knows the screen size, and away you go. So that hasn't been a challenge in what we do, but we're relatively closed still, right?
Right,
It's-
exactly. You can do that within a closed environment. What I'm saying is, once we try to open this up so it's a multi-vendor, then you hit the wall, I think.
Yeah.
So that's,
Yeah, but I
Yep.
think the way to think about that is that in many ways, what we've been working on, IBB is a good example of that, is the infrastructure to enable that.
correct. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'm
So
just saying that where the people, sort of buy what they
Yeah.
can look at. And that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying, when we can get the industry started saying, show me your app. Okay, it forces the back end work that we're advocating for.
that's
Yeah, it'll
great.
be easier. I mean, our system is all multi manufacturer and vendor, but it's all API stuff.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Okay, we are way past our end time, so we need to wrap. Thank you very much for this year of really exciting conversations and discussions. Hope you all have a good holiday break, and I think we're all looking forward to next year,
When's our first day back? Just to confirm,
January 6th,
January 6th.
Monday,
January 6th.
January 6th.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Have a Merry Christmas, everyone.
Have a
Thank you
good
very much,
Bye.
everybody.
Happy holidays.
Yes,
Thank
yes.
you.
Happy
Yeah.
holidays.
Cheers,
Thank
guys.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.